This is the Board of Public Works meeting for November 22nd, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. here in the City Council chambers and also on Zoom. We've got a slight technical difficulty in that we're not able to hear the participants on Zoom in council chambers at this moment. I've got ITS staff heading down this way to hopefully tell me what I've done wrong there. I think I just figured it out myself. If I did, I'll give myself a pat on the back. All right, we are going to go to Kyla Cox-Deckard, Board President for the Board of Public Works, to kick off the meeting. Again, this is being recorded on Zoom, and then we are in person here at Council Chambers. And this is the November 22nd meeting of the Board of Public Works.
Thank you. I call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works this Tuesday, November 22nd of 2022. First on our agenda, we have messages from board members. Do we have any messages from the board this evening? All right. Next up, we have petitions and remonstrances. Before we go to the first item under petitions and remonstrances, I will call for anyone who has a public comment on something not on the agenda this evening to go ahead and make that now. If you are on Zoom, you can use the chat function, or we can test out our audio if you would like to raise your hand.
Oh, you're on the agenda. Yeah. Yours will be on this. No. This is not part of the agenda. Oh, okay.
Yes, please, and just state your name.
My name is Joe Davis, and I would like to let everyone know who isn't aware that today is Hoagie Carmichael's birthday, and he wrote Stardust in the house that is just 2 doors down from mine, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other public comments on anything not on the agenda this evening?
I don't see any.
Seeing none.
And actually, if I could, I'm going to ask April. April is online right now,
okay.
so I'm going to see if she'll do an audio check
Sure.
for me real quick.
That
April.
sounds good.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We win.
You fixed it.
We win today. All right, thank you. All right, back to the
You're welcome.
All right, first item under petitions and remonstrances is appeal notice of violation number 62022-10-0085 at 530 South Washington Street. We'll have staff presentation first.
Good evening. This is Chris Wheeler with City Legal, and I'm here to discuss the NOV that was issued in this matter. I would like to discuss with you the property at 530 South Washington Street. And I'm going to ask that the neighborhood enforcement officer come up and describe the state of the property on the date that the notice of violation was issued. And just to remind the board, the violation was issued, the notice of violation was issued on the 7th of October of this year, 2022. Rob Council is the officer who issued the NOV, and he's going to describe what the state of the property looked like on the very day that he issued this NOV.
Hi guys, I'm Rob Council, Hand Department Compliance Officer. So the ticket issued on October 7th, 2022, which is the one in question today, I took a lot of photographs. You guys have it. The yard is just filled with garbage, rotting wood, plastic buckets, other refuse that is not acceptable on city properties. He's got quite a bit there.
We did distribute some pictures, both that Mr. Council provided to both Mr. Davis and to the board here just a few minutes ago, and those pictures were from October 14th.
The city defines garbage as any putrescible animal, vegetable wastes, which he has documented in photos of the compost pile. It's also recyclable materials, cans, plastic, metal, you know, that kind of stuff, all scattered about his backyard. Another one that the city defines as garbage would be the yard waste. That's the grass, weeds, leaves, brush, trimmings, which are all documented in the photos that I've given you guys. And then the refuse end of it is just the rubbish, ashes, you know, all that kind of fun stuff that's in the compost pile. So all of those were documented on photo, and that's all under 6-04-010.
And also, Mr. Council, on that date, prior to that date, you had issued NOVs on this property for the same violations. Is that right?
Yes, sir, it is.
And when you issued the NOV on the 7th of October, would you say that the state of the property was the same or worse than it was in the prior issuance of NOVs that were upheld by this board?
The property has actually added more stuff. So nothing's been cleared out that I could see from the right-of-way, from the street and the alleyway. So it looks like just more stuff has been piled.
Thank you. So city staff is asking that in this matter, with this appeal, given the fact that the board has reviewed notice of violations issued in the past for this property for the same violation and denied the appeals and upheld the NOVs that were issued, we're going to ask again that the board, based upon the photographs that you have in front of you, based upon the statements of Mr. Council, that the board deny this appeal and uphold the NOV that was issued on the 7th. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you.
And just very quickly, as a reminder to the board, after the last time we heard an appeal from Mr. Davis for this property, we let the board know that we would work with both city legal, planning staff, and hand staff, because there are kind of simultaneous tracks going with violations of Title 20 for outdoor storage that planning is involved with, and then there's the Title VI ones that you're hearing this evening. So there's kind of two separate tracks there. And so on, I'm not sure the date to your letter, Mr. Wheeler, but Mr. Wheeler did put together a comprehensive letter that was sent on or around October 24th to Mr. Davis via certified mail to...
We sent a certified mailing to Mr. Davis on the 27th of October. He signed for that on the 31st of October, so we know he received it. It was a comprehensive discussion of the fact that he needed to get the property cleaned up. Failure to do so within a reasonable time, I can't remember what we said, would likely result in fines being issued for these ongoing violations, and that the city would begin to consider and most likely look for abatement. We haven't begun abatement yet. We're waiting to see how things go with the Board of Zoning Appeals. We would like to probably bring them together as an abatement action on the property to get everything removed, because that particular side of the equation talks about whether or not you have any construction materials and other things that, while they might be allowable, certainly can't just be out exposed and to within public eyesight. So that will have to get dealt with. We'd like to bring it all together and try to get it all resolved at one time.
Thank you. All right, now is an opportunity to hear from the appellant. Mr. Davis, would you like to make your comments?
Hello, I'm again Joe Davis, still the same Joe Davis. I was so excited when I left here from the previous appeal that I had, because I believe it was you, was it you, Ms. Deckard, who asked if the city could put together a comprehensive listing and let me know exactly what they wanted to come into compliance, and then give me a time frame for that. So I thought, finally, yes, someone's going to work with me. And so imagine I left here knowing that the next contact that I was going to get from the city was going to be this notice. So anyway, following that unsuccessful appeal, I immediately paid those fines, because I was worried that they were going to escalate. And then, as usual, I continued to put in my 10 to 12-hour days every day working on my property. My property is an active construction site. I have a solar permit for a solar array. I'm building a garage, 2-story structure with a dwelling unit on top, and when I complete that, I can move into it and then more fully engage in the repairs on my own house. Because it's very difficult to work on one's house and live in it at the same time. It's just extremely challenging. So less than 1 week, or at least 1 business week later, I received, or it was written, a violation notice by Rob Council on the 7th. So even though I continued to work, 10 to 12-hour days on my property, I was shocked that in less than 1 week, I received another garbage violation. This time the fine was $100. And I can only assume that it is because of my compost pile, because as you recall back during that previous appeal, there was a slide or image that was cast on the carousel up there, and there was my compost pile and my bin that was disassembled, and there was a milk crate full of canned goods and a can opener. Well, I participate, because I'm low income, I participate in several food pantries. And I go to Mother Hubbard's cupboard regularly. I go to the First United Methodist Church Wednesday pantry just up the street. And I also go on occasion to Mackham's food pantry. So most people don't realize this, but the food that is distributed at the food pantries is either expired or it's very near its expiration date. And it can be very hard to stay on top of all that. I myself feel responsible to make sure that if there is any food waste, that I compost it, including opening up the cans and emptying those contents periodically into my compost pile, and then recycling those metal cans. So a lot of people who visit the pantries, though, they don't practice any sort of sustainable ethic like that. It just goes straight into the garbage. So I can understand that maybe in that image there were some sweet potatoes still lying on the ground or this or that, because I was in the process of turning it. And I apologize for not having everything covered in soil, so that the public eye won't have to see an active, compost pile. So I began to focus on moving that forward. So I emptied all those cans out. I incorporated them into my soil and mixed it all up and stirred it around. And then I took that mostly already fully composted material and spread it in my sort of my flower beds, my raised flower beds, and my areas where I'm trying to build up the soil. So, I sent an image today, here late in the day, of my compost pile, and as you can see in that image, there's nothing there now. It's all just dirt, and I actually put up some fencing so that the public wouldn't have to see that. And not that anyone has complained to me about it to my face or anything like that. And I'm, as I say, 10 or 12 hours a day, I'm there going to the front, to the back, to the side, to the side, to the front, to the back, pulling things out of the house so I can put things into the house more organized, doing my best to tighten up the ship, doing my best to increase the curb appeal. I even purchased almost $50 worth of mums to decorate around my house. And you can see some images. They're in my water catchment system. Those 2 bathtubs in the buckets are part of my water catchment system. Because if the water comes down off of the roof in front, there on the left-hand side of my porch, it can go into my basement. So I try to catch that water, and then I use it to water my plants, to wash my vehicles, and in general, my cats they like that roof water for some reason. They'll drink it before they'll drink, the filtered water that I put out for them. So it might be true that one who doesn't see me working every day doesn't understand that the composition of materials is constantly changing. Because, as I say, when you're building, you have to have all your materials at hand. And then you have to, if you wish to organize things better, you have to pull things out. It's sort of like no pain, no gain. And when it comes to my building materials, that's going to be addressed in the BZA, and I don't feel like it's fair for hand to pile on, or actually planning to pile on. I don't know. It's just people are coming at me from different directions for the same thing, to me, it feels unfair. And I would really like to address these issues one at a time. And today, I think the issue is the putrescent materials. I mean, because in the first notice of violation that I received from Rob Council on the 11th of August, it was a warning. And in the comments, it says, properly dispose of all garbage and putrescent materials on property. Eradicate all Japanese knotweed and poison ivy. Well, Rob especially pointed out the poison ivy because he said that he thought he had gotten some.
Mr. Davis, if I may interrupt real quick, can we focus on the current notice of violation and the appeal, not going back to August? We'd like to really focus on the current notice of violation.
Okay, but the current violation notice has a history. It started off as a warning, and in the comments, that's what I based the comments were what I based all of my efforts toward compliance with. So I started focusing, I mean, I don't have garbage on my property. That's just not true. I have building materials and, who is to define what garbage is? Building materials are not garbage. My tools are not garbage, I have a compost pile, but that's compost, Now, by definition, putrescent materials was brought up. And so this today, in my mind, because I have received no other indication that the notice of violation for $50 doesn't have any comments. So I just had to assume that that was about the putrescent materials. The notice of violation on the October 7th, which we're appealing today, has no comments. It's just, although it's not marked excessive growth anymore. I'm assuming that this is because I did such an amazing job at curbing back all of the trees and bushes and everything else to make sure that they were tightly within my property, And so imagine the shock when I get, once again, a notice of a violation for garbage. So I corrected that garbage, that putrescent issue, which you can see by that image that I sent today. So I feel like the building material issue and the active construction site, which I'm allowed to do by right, is an issue that will be fully addressed before the BZA, and that's the forum for that to take place. It's not here in this forum.
That is correct. So this evening, the violation that we are looking at is that of garbage and recyclable materials on the property, which we do have images that would display that type of material, not necessarily construction type material, though we are aware that that's another component to the conversation that's happening.
Would it be these three images that I have?
We do have those three images, and we have images you sent today, and the images that were part of the original packet for tonight. So we have a few sets of images.
Were those images that I prepared for this hearing, or were those images that came from the city?
We received a forwarded message from you by way of April today, this afternoon. So we received those attachments, and then we had images from the city that was part of the packet for this evening.
These three images.
And then
Those are
these
three of many images that have been
Yeah.
included.
Why have none of why have these images, these three images, only been shown to me today? And
We
why,
also received them today.
And why didn't I receive all of the images that came from the city?
Mr. Wheeler will address that.
Hang on a second here. Here's what I find fascinating. Mr. Davis is frustrated because he hasn't seen images. They're the images of his property. He's showing to the board today images that he took and shared today. We're sharing those images that we took and are sharing with him today. Everybody's getting their information today. Now, the NOV that was issued isn't just garbage. The NOV that was issued is a rather lengthy discussion that Mr. Davis would like to try and tune down to just one thing, which he calls putrescible material. The problem with that is that the notice of violation is much more than that. The notice of violation is for unlawful action by him when he placed and scattered garbage, recyclable materials, yard waste, all across his premises. And when you want to look at the definitions that the Bloomington Municipal Code has put together, garbage isn't just putrescible. It's also refuse. It's also rubbish. And when you look at rubbish, I can look in those pictures and I can see paper. I can see wood. I can see cans. I can see glass. I can see construction debris. I don't see construction materials. I see debris. I used to be in a construction work in my former life, and I know what a construction site looks like, and I know what construction materials look like. And when I look at those photographs, I don't see any construction material, I see construction debris. Now, I don't know where he's getting his construction materials that he claims are material. I have no idea, but what I see on that property looks like stuff that's been reclaimed from other areas, and from what Mr. Council has advised, and he can come up here and tell you in just a second, the items when they were on the property, when Mr. Davis did let them on the property, and he was reviewing the items that are on the property, the materials that he's claiming are construction are rotten and old and wouldn't pass any inspection of any county or city inspection for new construction, for sure. Now, getting back to the definitions of Bloomington Municipal Code, when you look at the photographs, you can also see glass containers and plastic containers, which is part of recyclable material. Non-putrescible items are on the property, which means they're not subject to organic decomposition. And on the date of the NOV, there was also putrescible material. If Mr. Davis went out and cleaned that material up, I applaud him. But on the date that the violation was issued, those materials were there. We can't talk about remediation. We can only talk about what it looked like on the date. Again, the staff has asked that that this council deny the appeal and uphold the notice of violation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call for any other public comment on this item. Do we have any public comment on Zoom? I don't think we have.
I don't see any on Zoom now.
I still have some comments to address
You
with
have,
these.
you have 2 minutes to wrap up your comments. Yeah.
Okay, if you'll look in this image right here, this is a screen for screening the stone. I received a notice of violation for parking on unimproved surfaces. Well, the leaves have fallen and they cover up the gravel. So I've been raking away the gravel. And then in some areas at the back of the property, the gravel over the time has become infiltrated with soil. So I've been screening it. These buckets contain gravel and dirt mixture, and if you look there, they're laying on their side because I didn't want the rainwater to fill up and make it harder for the screening. That's why I laid those buckets down. This sawhorse is what I set my screen on right there. So, bless you. That's being corrected. And Mr. Wheeler might be used to working with new materials, but I'm a sustainable builder. I try to recycle everything I can. And all those materials they are recycled. They're not brand new. I pulled them out of dumpsters because that's the most responsible thing that anyone can do in this world, is to keep building materials out of the landfill. So my garage, I'm putting up a garage. I salvaged a 100-year-old wooden garage to put up. The panels are large. I can't stick those into my basement. They won't fit through the door. You know, they have to be outside. I'm trying to tighten and tidy everything up.
May I ask a question, Mr. Davis? Do you have any current building permits to build a garage or do any of that activity that you've been describing?
I don't, and I don't need to have a building permit as per the Indiana log cabin rule. I can give you the code for that. But that essentially was established back in 1996 when a Mr. Robinson and his wife purchased property on the east side of the county.
My question's answered. I was just curious if you had any active building permits to be able to do so. And
I have an active solar permit, yes.
I was talking about the accessory dwelling unit and the garage you were referring to.
I don't need to have a permit, and I'm perfectly happy to provide for you the code and the case law that establishes that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We're now at the conclusion of this presentation. Fortunately, this board does not have to determine the validity of any sort of permitting or other code related to building. So we will set that aside for this evening and focus on the notice of violation appeal. We've already called for public comment, assuming that there are no other comments waiting on Zoom. Do we have a motion on this item from the board?
Could I ask one question, please?
Sure, yeah.
These photographs that were handed to us today, Mr. Counsel, you said you took these. When were these taken?
They were taken on November.
Sorry, can you clear the podium for a second, please?
They were taken the afternoon of November 14th with my supervisor, John Hewitt.
November 14th. And the photos, Mr. Davis, that you sent today were taken today or were taken another day? The photos that you sent by email this afternoon?
The ones that arrived that were just images, not the ones that came earlier in the day that came with along with a whole bunch of other things. Any image there might have been, well, those were all images that had been taken by hand. But my understanding, and I've been told that this by April, maybe April was incorrect, but she said once you file an appeal, the clock stops. So I filed an appeal right away. Why is hand coming and taking images after I've already filed for an appeal?
That is standard practice to continually monitor the property.
Yeah, often this board asks for documentation as to what the property looks like, at either closer to the meeting time to determine if there have been any, changes or modifications or anything like that. So that is common for them to continue to photograph for documentation.
I have one more question. I have now filed almost a dozen FOIA public information requests, and City Legal is not honoring those. They're not sending that information at all. And Rob Counsel told me that the only way I would ever get any information from him was to file a FOIA public records request. This strikes me as a very inefficient way to administer, good favor with the citizens of Bloomington who are bending over backwards to reach compliance and to understand more fully the path toward achieving that. I think someone looking at it from the outside would probably feel a frustration as I do. If we wish to table this and give me another opportunity by a date to understand more fully at least the putrescent aspect, but those are my building materials and tools. I'm a natural builder. I'm not brand new construction. I reuse every piece of building material that I can find. I'm saving money for that. So to classify all that as garbage, that's just not fair, it seems to me. I mean, utility is in the eyes of the beholder. Utility cannot be judged from outside. I'm the one who knows my materials best, and I'm the one who knows what they're being used for.
Okay, We appreciate that, Mr. Davis. What I think the point of staff is that based on our city code, the way things are on the property, whether stored on the property or whether considered to be garbage or recyclable materials on the property, is that the way it's stored, the way that it currently exists, and the photos that are documenting, it's not in compliance with city code. That's what the argument is from our city staff. I've explained to you that you have both the Title 20 through planning for the outdoor storage, you have the Title 6 through hand for the trash and the materials that have been talked about tonight. This board is taking up the issue of Title 6, and so there's a fundamental disagreement here. We can all understand that. What we are tasked with, the city staff, is to look at city code and figure out if the property is in compliance. The take of city staff and city legal is that the property is not in compliance. So, thank you, and we can agree to disagree here.
And I will call for a vote on this item. Is there a motion on this item?
Yes. I move that we deny the appeal for NOV number 62022-10-0085.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have the consent
Thank
agenda.
you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes for November 7th of 2022, addendum number 2 to 2022 Kone Service Agreement, 2023 Service Agreement with Economy Pest and Termite, 2023 Service Agreement with Everywhere Signs, 2023 Service Agreement with HFI for HVAC repairs and maintenance, 2023 Service Agreement with HFI for plumbing repairs and maintenance, 2023 Service Agreement with Indiana Door and Hardware, 2023 Service Agreement with Nature's Way, 2023 Service Agreement with Fotizo LLC, DBA Fish Window Cleaning, 2023 Service Agreement with Thrasher Landscaping, 2023 Service Agreement with Umphreys Masonry, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? Hearing none. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda items? On Zoom, you can raise hand or use chat.
Don't see any there.
All right. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve tonight's consent agenda for the meeting November 22nd, 2022.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, under new business, we have change orders number 1 and number 2 for the Jackson Creek Trail Phase 2 project.
Good evening, Roy Ayton with the City Engineering Department. The original completion date for the Jackson Creek Trail Phase 2 project was August 1st, 2022. Due to delays caused by local utilities, the contractor has requested additional days added to the contract. Change order number 1 will adjust the completion date to October 20th or October 30th, 2022, and change order number 2 will adjust it to December 18th, 2022. No contract funds or changes in scope are being adjusted with these 3 changes.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve change orders number 1 and number 2 for the Jackson Creek Trail Phase 2 project.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is change order number 8 for the 7th Street Protected Bike Lane project.
Good evening, Roy Ayton again with City Engineering Department. After the construction was completed, it was discovered that the 5 inlets along the north curb line of 7th Street between Lincoln and Grant were failing. 2 of the inlets were adjusted during construction and are being repaired under the warranty. 3 additional inlets are in need of repair and are being added with this change order. Additionally, a portion of the existing storm sewer will need to be repaired prior to inlets being adjusted. This change order in the amount of $21,214.65 will add $8,826.85 for the MOT, maintenance of traffic, and $1,566, which is the cost of the original adjusting of the castings. $10,821.80 for the repairs of the existing storm sewer. Funding for this change order will be provided by both the 2016 bicentennial bond and the City of Bloomington Utilities Department.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve change order number 8 for the 7th Street Protected Bike Lane project.
Nice second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is preliminary engineering agreement with CSX Transportation, Inc.
Roy Ayton, City Engineering Department. A section of the B-Line Extension Project will be constructed adjacent to the railroad tracks that are owned by CSX Railroad. The city is required to have the railroad review our construction plans so that they may develop a schedule and an estimate for the work. The agreement will obligate the city to pay CSX for the review of the project. It is estimated that the cost of the review will be $12,100. Funding for this agreement will be provided through the Consolidated TIF West 17th Street area and is also subject to the RDC approval.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
Is this a standard sort of agreement with the railroad with other projects that are involved or near train tracks?
Yes, this falls under a category where we are federally funded on this project, so there are certain state statutes that we have to follow along with it to have railroad review for safety. Also, though, even with local projects, if we're doing work that's adjacent to or on railroad property, we'll work with the railroad and go into these agreements so that they can provide flagging and review to make sure everything's safe during construction.
That's very helpful, thanks. I haven't seen one of these quite like this.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the preliminary engineering agreement with CSX Transportation, Inc.
Nice second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is alley right-of-way dedication at 400 West 7th Street, the Johnson Creamery.
Good evening, board members. I'm Andrew Seaboard, the city engineer, and I believe on the Zoom should be Michael Cordero with Peerless Development, in case you have any questions for them. And if possible, if we could pull up a map, and if not, I'm pushing my.
I know, we at least have it in the packet.
Okay, and that's what matters the most. That you
And
guys can-
anyone who might be watching and wants to look at the map, you can find it on the
I might be
city
able to figure this
website.
out. Is this the page 147?
I think that sounds right.
Okay.
But this is a petition to dedicate a new east-west alley between 7th Street and 8th Street, running east and west. Essentially, it would connect to an existing north-south alley and extend towards the east, towards the B line, but not to the B line. So it would be essentially a dead-end alley. It's approximately 12 feet wide. And this proposal comes to you as a result of some conversations at City Council as they evaluated a right-of-way vacation. That is a separate process from this, and just a quick note that vacation was approved by City Council and signed into ordinance by Mayor Hamilton, so that is set in place at this point. So this is now just following through on, I think, a commitment to go through this process. Staff, in reviewing this proposal, does not recommend acceptance of this dedication. We recommend denial of it. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And like I said, you can see Michael is available if you have any questions as well. And thank you, Mr. Wason, for.
Mr. Wason. Yeah, so Adam Wason, Public Works Director, just real quickly here. We talked pretty extensively yesterday during the Board of Public Works work session about this, but so as Mr. Seaboard was talking about, the green alley is what was officially vacated by the City Council that you can see here. What was proposed to be dedicated as a new alley right-of-way is in red. I think Mr. Seaboard summarized it pretty well. We don't see a public benefit to this really going forward. It will not serve the city or any of our utility needs. It will, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it will house private stormwater retention facilities that Peerless would be, that is part of the development proposal. And so we don't see any reason to take on future maintenance responsibility or anything for a right-of-way here that we don't find to benefit the city. So we are asking that the board not accept.
Deny the dedication request.
Thank you.
All right, and does Mr. Cordero have any comments, or is he just anticipating questions that we might have?
I don't really have any comments. I'm definitely here to and happy to answer any questions that the board might have, but I don't have any further comments.
Thank you. Questions from the board? We talked about this at the work session yesterday and had some questions, confirming that this particular dedication of right-of-way would not benefit the city from the perspective of providing public service or utility in that space, given its current or planned usage as it's designed right now. We also discussed a little bit about the expectations of the city council when they reviewed the vacation request, which they are required to be the body that approves that, whereas we would be the body that approves the acceptance of dedication of new right-of-way. So just a little catch up on everything we talked about yesterday.
Thank you.
Any public comments on this item?
I don't see any on Zoom.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we deny the request for the alley right-of-way dedication at 400 West 7th Street, the Johnson Creamery.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have change orders number 1 and 2 for the Crosswalk HSIP project.
Hi, Sarah Gomez, Engineering Department staff. This project for 3 crosswalk improvements around the city was awarded to Rago Incorporated, and the contract included installation of ADA ramps, concrete curbs, RFBs, pavement markings, and signs. The original contract amount for the project was $635,043.42. Change order number 1 will deduct $3,200.97 for the addition of Class A concrete in place of full-depth hot mix asphalt as designed along all curb edges. Change order number 2 will add $5,747.50 for the rework of the center curb at 3rd and Grant to meet the designer's intended design. The change orders will add a total of $2,546.53 to the contract, and the total adjusted contract amount is $637,589.85. The city and NDOT staff have reviewed the 2 change orders and recommend approval.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the change orders numbers 1 and number 2 for the Crosswalks HSIP project.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is the contract with E&B Paving for the West Allen Street Greenway project.
Sarah Gomez again. This project will construct a neighborhood greenway improvement consisting of speed cushions, curb bump outs, rain gardens, modified median island, pavement markings, and signs on West Allen Street between Patterson Drive and South Walnut Street. The project was initially prioritized within the city's transportation plan, and project development included a public process with 2 public meetings and approval by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Commission. The project will be funded by ARPA. Maintenance of traffic and road closure include 60 days of construction in 2023 to be completed by August 8th, 2023. Most work will be completed with minimal lane restrictions, but a full closure of Rogers will be allowed for up to 7 days during modifications to the median island at Rogers and Allen. Bids were received at the Board of Public Works session on Monday, November 21st, 2022, and the board received the following 5 bids. Rivertown Construction. Would you like me to read all these? I forget.
You can just read the 4 that put in their amounts.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, thank you. Rivertown Construction LLC, $298,426. E&B Paving LLC, Kreider Incorporated, $320,386.75. Milestone Contractors, $344,300. Smock Fansler Corporation, $293,731.25, with E&B Paving at $290,000 as the parent lowest and responsible bidder.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
I don't see any.
Seeing none. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with EMB Paving for the West Allen Street Greenway project.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is lane and sidewalk closure request from AEG.
Jason Kerr with Engineering, here for 2 permitted areas for AEG, which is the citywide fiber project, for rotating lane closures and sidewalk closures as their work progresses. One area is East Morningside Drive, and the other is South Dunn Street. And really that's it currently. If there's any questions, more than happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
You mentioned during the work session yesterday that there was some ongoing communication with AEG about the door hangers, and that continues, I assume?
Yes, we're continuing conversations with them. They have another crew starting on Monday, I believe, and they're hoping with the amount of crews that they have going that these door hangers would be put up even previous or prior to locates even being called in.
Wonderful.
That's the goal.
Thank you.
So we are heading that way.
Any public comment on this item?
I don't see any.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve lane and sidewalk closure requests from AEG.
Nice second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is staff reports and other business.
No reports today.
Okay. Next up is approval of claims. I'm going to get to my claims here. Just give me a second. All right. Any questions on claims?
I have none.
Okay. Any public comment on claims?
I do not see any.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve claims in the amount of $441,501.63.
Nice second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And if there's nothing else, I will call for adjournment.
Awesome. Thank you.